All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given us. Gandalf, we are not the ones who choose when we are born, nor can we decide how long we will live. Time is like a river that has been flowing long before we arrived and will continue to flow after we are gone. The only thing that belongs to us is not the length of that river, but how we steer our boat through its ceaseless currents. People often fall into a state of helplessness when they are too busy regretting the past or fearing the future. The mind is like a magnifying glass. If focused only on what is lost, all hope becomes small. If magnifying only what is yet to come, fear grows larger than reality. We unintentionally drop the present, the only place where life truly exists. Time never stops to wait for anyone to become confident enough, wealthy enough, or perfect enough. It quietly slips away, carrying with it opportunities never seized and dreams that only ever remained as thoughts. Every morning is an invisible capital deposited into the bank account of your life. No one knows how much balance they have left, but everyone has the right to decide what to invest it in. Some spend it all on procrastination, complaining, and comparing. Others use it to learn a new skill, speak words of love, help someone else, or take one step closer to their dreams. What makes the difference is not who is granted more time, but who knows how to turn every moment into value. Time is also like a seed. If planted in the soil of discipline, it will blossom into achievement. If watered with gratitude, it will bear the fruit of happiness. But if left neglected in the field of hesitation, it will only grow weeds named regret. That is why many people fail, not from a lack of talent, but because they let precious days be stolen by trivial things. Life does not demand that we conquer every challenge. It simply places a quiet question before each of us every day. What will you do with today? The answer does not lie in grand promises made for tomorrow, but in every small action taken right now. A book opened, a lesson begun, a mistake corrected, a smile shared. All are silent decisions, possessing the power to shape an entire future. When we understand the value of time, we stop blaming our circumstances and start taking responsibility for our lives. Because in the end, the greatest tragedy is not how many years we live, but how many years we let pass without truly living. Every moment given is a non-refundable gift, and when we learn to cherish that gift, we will realize that a life is not measured by the days that have passed, but by the meaning we create in every day we are alive. Rock bottom became the solid foundation on which I rebuilt my life. JKRowling. There are times in life when a person feels they have fallen to the absolute lowest place. Every door seems to close. Plans shatter, relationships fracture, and self-belief slowly drains away. It feels like standing in the middle of a desolate wasteland after a storm, where only the fragments of a dream remain. But the strange thing is, the very place that seems like the end can become the most powerful beginning. When someone reaches the limits of loss, they simultaneously lose much of their fear. When there is nothing left to hide, a person begins to live more authentically with themselves. When they no longer have to prove anything to the world, they finally find the calm to listen to their inner voice. Rock bottom is like the harsh winter of a forest. On the surface, every branch is bare, and life seems to have vanished. Yet, beneath that freezing soil, the roots are silently growing, preparing for an explosive spring. Human growth happens in the same quiet way. Many believe that success is built upon a series of consecutive victories. In reality, the vast majority of the strongest people are forged through painful stumbles. Just as a skyscraper cannot stand firm on a shallow foundation, a person cannot achieve true fortitude without facing sufficiently deep trials. The deeper adversity digs, the higher the future can reach. What matters is not how far you have fallen, but what you learn while you are standing back up. Rock bottom also offers a gift that smooth sailing rarely provides: perspective. When at the peak, it is easy to get swept away by applause and the illusion of invincibility. But when, at the bottom, every mask falls away, we clearly see who genuinely stays, what is truly valuable, and who we really want to become. That very clarity creates a foundation stronger than any fleeting success. Life is like a bamboo tree. To soar high into the sky, it must first drive its roots deep into the earth. That seemingly slow period is not stagnation. It is the process of accumulating strength. The same goes for us. Days of suffering are not necessarily days lost. Sometimes it is the period when the soul is silently building resilience, patience, and wisdom to prepare for a much stronger version of oneself. Life will always have storms, stumbles, and moments that seem to offer no way out. But what decides your future is not whether you have hit rock bottom, but whether you choose to view it as a grave or a foundation. The pessimist only sees a pile of rubble after the wall collapses. The optimist picks up every piece of rubble to build a much sturdier house. And sometimes, the most beautiful thing is not a life that has never cracked, but the fact that after all those fractures, light still finds a way in, helping us build a life that is stronger, more authentic, and more meaningful than ever before. What you do makes a difference, and you have to decide what kind of difference you want to make. Jane Goodall: every person arriving in this life is like a stone thrown into a still lake. Whether the stone is large or small, the ripples will expand in concentric circles, reaching places even the thrower cannot see. Our actions are exactly the same. No deed is entirely meaningless, and no choice truly disappears once it has been made. Every word, every attitude, and every decision leaves a trace in our own lives and the lives of those around us. A person's value is not measured by what they own, but by the impact they leave behind with every action. We often believe that only grand achievements can change the world, so we overlook a timely word of encouragement, a sincere smile, or a seemingly ordinary act of kindness. But life is not built upon rare, extraordinary moments. It is formed by thousands of small choices repeated every single day, just as a river is not made by a single downpour, but by countless drops of water silently coming together. A person's character and destiny are shaped by simple yet enduring actions. Every decision is like sowing a seed in the garden of the future. If you sow laziness, you will reap regret. If you sow perseverance, you will harvest results. If you sow kindness, you will not only beautify your own life, but also bring warmth into the lives of others. The remarkable thing is that the seed never asks if the sower is famous or wealthy. It simply grows silently according to the true nature of what was placed into the earth. Life is fair in that exact way. Today's actions are the physical form of tomorrow. There are those who spend their whole lives searching for meaning, forgetting that meaning is not a hidden treasure at the end of a journey. Meaning is created in every deed, every choice, and the way we treat other human beings. A person might not change the whole world, but they can entirely change the world of someone else. A word of encouragement can uplift someone in despair. An act of forgiveness can heal a fractured relationship. An hour of hard study today can open a door for an entire future. Great changes always begin with things that seem incredibly small. Life doesn't ask how many opportunities you had. It asks what you did with the opportunities you were given. Every new day is a blank page, and your actions are the ink writing the story of your life. You cannot control everything that happens to you, but you always have the power to decide how you will react and what mark you will leave. That is the ultimate freedom of humanity. What remains is not the words we promised, nor the plans that forever stayed on paper. What remains are the things we actually did. Therefore, live with intention, kindness, and a sense of responsibility. Let every action become a seed of hope, every decision a step toward growth, and every passing day a positive difference made, because it is exactly what you do today that silently writes your legacy for tomorrow. You can have it all, just not all at once. Oprah Winfrey. We see the success of others and want to have it immediately today. We want a solid career, abundant finances, robust health, a happy family, beautiful relationships, and inner peace, all appearing in a single moment. But life has never operated that way. It is like the 4 alternating seasons. No one can enjoy the blooming flowers of spring, harvest the fruits of autumn, feel the breeze of summer, and embrace the stillness of winter all in the same day. Every beautiful thing has its own time. One of the greatest causes of stress is when the gap between expectation and reality becomes too wide. We often pressure ourselves to achieve every goal in a short time, then feel disappointed when life doesn't go according to plan. However, growth has never been a sprint. It is like planting a garden. No one sows a seed today and expects to have a shade tree by tomorrow morning. Each stage of life is like a room in a grand house called the future. You cannot stand in all the rooms at the same time, but you can certainly step through every door if you are persistent enough. There are times when you must focus on studying to build a foundation of knowledge. There are stages where you must accept working hard to accumulate experience. There are moments to dedicate time to family, heal your soul, or care for your health. Prioritizing one thing today does not mean abandoning the rest. It is simply how you lay down brick by brick, so the house is built far more solidly. Look at an ancient tree in the forest. It does not become majestic after a single rainstorm. In its first year, it develops its roots. In the following years, its trunk thickens, its branches spread, and only many years later can it provide shade for countless creatures. If the tree tried to do all of this in a single season, it would snap before it could ever mature. Humans are the same. Life does not require you to have everything today. What life expects is for you to continually move forward, step by step, slowly but in the right direction. One of the hallmarks of maturity is knowing how to delay immediate gratification in exchange for long-term value. That is not a sacrifice. It is the art of choice. When you dedicate time to learning, you are investing in future opportunities. When you care for your health, you are preparing for the enduring years ahead. When you patiently nurture a relationship, you are sowing seeds for long-lasting companionship. Every good thing needs time to take root before it can bloom. What makes many people exhausted is not a lack of capability, but trying to embrace the entire sky when their hands can only hold one star at a time. Happiness does not come from possessing everything at once, but from knowing how to appreciate the phase you are living in and pouring your heart into what matters most right now. When you are patient with your journey, life will gradually open new doors at the exact moment you are mature enough to step through them. Trust the rhythm of life. You don't need to run faster than time, nor do you need to compare your journey with anyone else's. With each passing day, if you are still learning, still trying, and still taking one small step forward, then all good things are quietly making their way toward you. You may not have everything today, but if you never stop growing, a day will come when you look back and realize the things you once dreamed of have appeared, one by one, at the right time, with the right value, and perfectly aligning with the person you worked so hard to become. The price of inaction is far greater than the cost of making a mistake. End quote. End quote. Meg Whitman. We are often so afraid of making a mistake that we choose to do nothing at all. We procrastinate, waiting for the perfect moment, stay silent for fear of judgment, and abandon ideas, fearing failure. On the surface, inaction feels safe. It creates no friction, causes no embarrassment, and doesn't force us to face immediate risks. But that is only a temporary sense of security. In reality, inaction is like an invisible anchor, keeping a ship forever in the harbor. The ship is not battered by waves, but it will never explore the ocean either. Over time, what erodes is not just opportunity, but courage and self-belief. Life is shaped not only by the things we have done, but also by the countless things we didn't dare to do. A mistake usually causes momentary pain, but inaction can stretch into years of regret. The wounds of failure will eventually heal with time, while the opportunities never taken quietly turn into unanswered questions. What if I had tried back then? We tend to magnify the consequences of failure while underestimating the cost of standing still. We assume that taking no action means taking no losses. In truth, every day of hesitation is a day a skill goes unsharpened, a dream remains stalled, and potential is left abandoned in silence. Like a sword that is never drawn from its sheath, it won't break in battle, but it will slowly rust away from disuse. Human capability is the same. What weakens us is not trying and failing, but never giving ourselves the chance to grow. Consider a seed deep in the earth. If it fears the dark, fears the rain, or fears breaking its shell to reach upward, it will forever remain just a seed. To become a tree, it must accept transformation. That process is far from easy, but it is precisely the pressure of the soil, water, and wind that helps it develop roots strong enough to stand firm. Humans are no different. Mistakes are sometimes just the heavy soil life places on our shoulders, forcing us to grow instead of remaining forever in our comfort zones. In reality, very few people succeed because they have never made a mistake. What sets them apart is that they do not let mistakes become the end of the line. They view every failure as a lesson, every stumble as a course correction. Meanwhile, passive individuals build themselves a cage out of familiar excuses. I'll figure it out tomorrow. It's not the right time. I'm not good enough yet. The bars of that cage are not made of steel, but forged from fear, hesitation, and the habit of procrastination. The longer they stay inside, the more they forget that the door was never even locked. Life always favors those who dare to step forward, even if their first steps are shaky. A person who learns from 10 mistakes will go much further than someone who spends their life avoiding a single failure. Because while a mistake might temporarily cost time, money, or pride, it simultaneously grants experience, resilience, and maturity. Conversely, inaction silently steals opportunities away without leaving behind any lessons, only regret. What brings a person peace is not a perfect life, but a life lived to the absolute fullest. Accept that sometimes you will take the wrong path, but that is still better than standing forever at a crossroads, out of fear of choosing wrong. Every action opens a new possibility. Every attempt helps you understand yourself better. And it is exactly within those imperfect steps that you will find the path leading to the strongest, most confident, and most meaningful version of yourself. Most great people have attained their greatest success just one step beyond their greatest failure. There is one thing the histories of extraordinary people silently prove. The peak and the abyss are often standing very close to one another. The distance between the greatest failure and the most brilliant success is sometimes just a single decision not to quit. Yet, the paradox lies in the fact that most people stop exactly when they are closest to a breakthrough. They see the door close without realizing that with just one more knock, that door might swing wide open. Failure always creates a powerful illusion. It tricks a person into believing that the result that just occurred will repeat itself forever. One rejection makes us think we are not good enough. One stumble makes us believe the road ahead is made entirely of rocks and gravel. The brain is wired to remember pain to protect us from risk. But that very mechanism can sometimes turn fear into an invisible shackle. The sad reality is that many people do not fail because they lack ability, but because they let their very first failure write the final chapter of their story. Imagine a miner digging for diamonds. After thousands of strikes, he sees nothing but dirt and swirling dust. Exhausted, he decides to stop, entirely unaware that the precious vein of diamonds lies just one final strike away from his pickaxe. The next person to arrive simply picks up where he left off and is hailed as lucky. But in truth, what made the difference was not luck. It was the persistence to take one more step. Life operates by that exact same rule. Many of the greatest rewards are placed just on the other side of the most grueling challenges. Failure is not a wall blocking the path. It is more like a furnace for the will. Gold must endure extreme heat to burn away its impurities. A diamond must withstand immense pressure to attain its rare hardness. A seed must break its own tough outer shell before it can sprout into a tree. Humans are no different. The greatest adversities do not appear to prove your weakness, but to awaken a power you never knew you possessed during times of peace. What makes great people different is not that they are fearless or that they never fail. They too have doubted themselves, lost their way, and wanted to give up. But they understand that failure is merely data, not an identity. An undesired outcome simply indicates that a certain method didn't work. It does not define a person's worth. Instead of letting failure define them, they let it become their strictest teacher. Every time they fall, they stand back up with more experience, more grit, and a clearer vision. Life is sometimes like the dawn. Before the sun appears, the sky is often at its darkest. The very moment that makes many believe the night will last forever is exactly when the light is closest. If you give up in the dark, you will never know that the sunrise was only minutes away. The same thing happens with our dreams. The time you feel the most exhausted, the most doubtful, and the most ready to surrender is sometimes the exact moment you are closest to the turning point of your life. Do not let one failure dictate your destiny. Let it become a stepping stone, not a stumbling block. Every time you overcome adversity, you expand your own limits, and who knows, with just one more step, just one more try, you might reach a success that previously seemed impossible. Many great stories do not begin with a victory. They begin the moment an ordinary person decides not to surrender after their greatest defeat. Most of the shadows of this life are caused by our standing in our own sunshine. Ralph Waldo Emerson. We don't just live in the external world. We also live in a world constructed by our own minds. And in that world, the shadows sometimes do not come from our circumstances, but from how we view ourselves when faced with the light of our potential. It acts as a mirror placed before the soul, forcing a person to confront what they usually avoid, the fear that stems not from the world, but from inner doubt, comparing oneself to an ideal version that they believe they must achieve. When seeing the light of capability, of dreams, of untapped potential, instead of feeling motivated, many feel pressured. That light does not warm them. It exposes the parts of them that are still incomplete. And right then, the mind begins to cast shadows. The fear of failure, the feeling of inadequacy, procrastination, and skepticism. The irony is that these shadows do not pre-exist. They are born from our very own reaction to the light. Imagine a person standing in front of a bright lamp in a dark room. If they turn their back to the light, their shadow will stretch ahead of them like an endless road, making them think they are lost. But if they step toward the light, the shadow gradually shrinks behind them and eventually vanishes. The light never changed. The person's position determined everything. The inner life operates in exactly the same way. When we face our potential with fear, we prolong the shadows. But when we face it with acceptance and action, the shadows begin to dissolve. Many people carry within them a paradox. They long to become a better version of themselves, yet are terrified to look at that very version. They want success, but fear the responsibility that accompanies it. They want change, but are afraid to leave their familiar comfort zone. Because of this, they stand caught between the light and the dark, moving neither forward nor backward. And in that tug of war, the inner shadow grows larger by the day, not because their lives are genuinely bleak, but because they have not dared to fully step toward what they could become. The light of one's own potential is not always comfortable. It illuminates flaws, limitations, bad habits, and dreams that have been deferred for far too long. But the light is not meant to make a person feel small. It is meant to reveal the path to growth. Just as the sunlight does not weaken a seed, but helps it sprout. If the seed fears the light, it will forever stay buried in the earth. If people fear looking at their own potential, they will remain forever trapped within limits they created themselves. What matters is not eliminating the shadow by denying it, but understanding that the shadow is merely a sign of inaction. Every fear carries a message. Every doubt points to an unexplored territory. When we dare to take one small step toward what we fear, the shadow does not disappear immediately, but it begins to lose its grip, and gradually, the light within becomes clearer than any fear. The journey of growth is not about finding ways to avoid the light, but learning to stand firmly in your own sunshine. Because when a person is brave enough not to turn their back on their own potential, they will realize that the shadows were never truly the enemy. They are just temporary silhouettes, and as they move forward, the light will always be the thing that outlasts everything else. If you don't create your reality will create you. People often believe they are living their lives actively, but most of the time, we are merely reacting to what happens around us. Work, pressure, social expectations, fear of failure, the gaze of others, all are like invisible currents sweeping us away, shaping how we think, how we feel, and even how we choose. It is very easy for a person to fall into the state of living passively by inertia, without clear goals or a conscious awareness of one's core values, the mind automatically absorbs its environment like a sponge. If you are in a negative environment, you gradually become cynical. If you are in an environment of procrastination, you slowly lose your drive. If you are constantly surrounded by comparison, you begin to measure yourself by the standards of others. Reality, at this point, is no longer something you observe, but something that is silently molding who you are, day by day. Imagine life as a soft block of clay. If you do not use your own hands to mold it into the shape you desire, it will be pulled down by gravity, distorted by its surroundings, and ultimately take on a random form dictated by external forces. But if you actively sculpt it, however slowly or imperfectly, that block of clay will eventually bear your unique mark. Humans are the same. Every choice, every habit, every small decision are the touches that shape the contours of your life. The most dangerous thing about living passively is not making mistakes, but losing the right to define yourself. When you do not actively build your reality, you begin living by pre-written scripts, studying to meet expectations, working just to survive, living just to get by. Gradually, you stop asking, "What do I want?" and only ask, "What should I do so I don't fall behind?" And when that happens, reality ceases to be a space of freedom and becomes an invisible mold dictating every action. When a person starts actively creating their reality, they no longer just react to life, they begin to design it. They choose their environment instead of being controlled by it. They build habits instead of being led by fleeting emotions. They define success by their own values instead of comparing themselves to others. This does not mean they control everything. It means they control their own direction, even when circumstances are far from perfect. Look at a sailor in the middle of the ocean. The waves, the wind, and the currents are unavoidable elements. But if the sailor knows their course clearly and knows how to adjust the sails, they can still advance toward their desired shore. If they let go of the wheel, the boat doesn't stop. It simply gets swept away in a direction no one chose. Life operates in exactly that way. No one stands still in reality. Either you are steering it, or it is steering you. The crucial thing is not whether you can control every aspect of life, but whether you consciously participate in creating it. Every passing day is an opportunity for you to rewrite a piece of your reality through choice, discipline, and mindfulness. The small changes made today are the very first sketches of your future. When you look back on your journey, you will realize a stark truth. Your life did not naturally become what it is. It has always been the culmination of what you have allowed, what you have chosen, and what you have built. When you actively create your reality, you are not just existing in life, you are co-architecting it. And that is the exact difference between a person who merely exists and a person who truly lives. Do not look for approval, except for the consciousness of doing your best. Andrew Carnegie. The need for validation. We want to be seen, to be praised, to be reassured that we are on the right path. But the more we depend on external approval, the easier it is to lose our own internal compass. People very easily fall into the trap of defining oneself through the eyes of others. When we constantly measure our worth by social reactions, the mind gradually becomes a dependent mirror. If others are happy, we feel we are right. If others criticize, we feel we are wrong. But the problem is, the gaze of others is always changing. One day they might praise you. The next day they might forget you. And sometimes they are not even consistent in their own judgments. If you place your entire self-worth on that foundation, you will live in a prolonged state of instability, forever swayed by the outside world. Imagine a person rowing a boat at sea, but constantly looking at all the surrounding boats to decide their direction. Every boat has a different heading, a different speed, and a different captain. If they just keep watching and adjusting to match the others, the rower will never advance toward their own destination. Life is just like that. When you live for approval, you inadvertently hand the steering wheel of your life over to the crowd people who are not living your journey. The only thing truly worth seeking approval from is your own conscience, knowing you have tried your absolute best. Because when you know you have put in your full effort and done the best you could at that moment, then no matter the outcome, you still have a solid foundation to stand on without collapsing. When a person knows they have done their best, they no longer need constant external validation to feel valuable. They can accept failure without equating it to who they are. They can receive a compliment without becoming dependent on it. They become much more stable because the standard of judgment no longer rests in the hands of others, but in their honesty with themselves. Think of a mountain climber. They cannot control the weather, they cannot control the terrain, and they certainly cannot control the gazes of the people standing at the foot of the mountain. But they can control every single one of their footsteps, every decision to stop or keep going, and every limit they choose to push past. When they come down the mountain, the only thing they need to know is not what do others think, but did I climb with everything I had? If the answer is yes, then the peak, no matter how high or low, holds profound meaning. Life becomes heaviest when we live to be approved of, and clearest when we live with inner self-validation, not to fight against the world, but so as not to lose yourself within it. True freedom doesn't lie in being recognized by others, but in the ability to stand tall, even when no one is applauding. When you can look back on your day and quietly know, today I did my absolute best. That is the most important approval of all. Not loud, not dependent, but solid enough to help you keep walking without needing permission from anyone. Failure is like fertilizer. It stinks, to be sure, but it makes things grow faster in the future. Denis Waitley. In the human experience, failure often carries a very distinct scent, heavy, unpleasant, and sometimes making us want to flee immediately. It strikes at our pride, shakes our beliefs, and forces us to confront limits we would rather not acknowledge. But the paradox of life is, the very thing that is most unpleasant can become the most powerful nutrient for growth. Failure triggers a natural danger alert response in the brain. It makes us feel pain, shame, or anxiety, a defense mechanism designed to prevent us from repeating mistakes. But if we just stop at those emotions, failure becomes a dead end. Conversely, if a person can push past that initial layer of emotion, failure transforms into the most valuable data for development. It points out what isn't working, exposes the flaws in our thinking, and forces us to adjust our strategy. Much like the earth, after a severe storm, seemingly devastated, but actually made more fertile by all that has been broken down. Imagine a garden. No gardener only likes clean and sweet-smelling things while expecting their plants to thrive. For a tree to grow strong, the soil must be fertilized, something that might initially be repulsive, but is packed with nutrients. Failure is exactly like that. It is not pleasant. It is not pretty. And sometimes it makes us want to abandon our garden entirely. But right in the process of old things decomposing, it lays the groundwork for new life to form. In every person's developmental journey, failure is not a sign of the end, but a signal for restructuring. When a plan collapses, we are forced to re-examine how we think. When a relationship shatters, we learn to better understand our own emotions and boundaries. When a goal is missed, we are compelled to adjust our approach. With every instance like this, a person doesn't just stand back up. They are reshaped deeper within. What matters is how we handle the stench of failure. Some become obsessed with it, seeing it as proof that they are simply not good enough. But there are also those who understand that it is just a temporary phase of growing up. They neither deny their failure nor sugarcoat it. Instead, they use it as material to learn from. The difference between these two types of people does not lie in whether they fail or not, but in whether they turn failure into a poison or into nourishment for their future. Looking at the bigger picture, all sustainable growth must pass through some form of decomposition. Metal must endure the fire to be refined. Trees must brave the storm winds to grow deeper roots. Humans must navigate through mistakes to forge their resilience. There is no true maturity that is completely clean and painless. It is those very experiences that seem negative that actually help us expand our own limits. Failure does not define who you are, but it plays a crucial role in who you will become. If you learn to see it as a natural part of the growth process, you will no longer fear it, and instead begin to learn how to use it. And when that happens, the very things that once made you most uncomfortable become exactly what silently feeds your greatest inner strength, just like the soil that seemed foul but is the very place where all life begins to sprout.